the feeling of taking like pieces of lumber and actually turning it into this tangible piece of furniture that is so useful, just that feeling was so empowering. So, it
Right.
sort of snowballed from there.
I am so excited to talk to none other than Anika Gandhi. Her goal is to inspire and empower beginners with woodworking and home improvement ideas and skills.
I mean, woodworking, everything that you're building, you're basically building shapes, right? In 3 dimensions. So it's all shapes. The first thing is, of course, everything is square. Like, I think 80%, 70 or 80% of woodworking is all about building boxes, right? If you can build a box, then you can build a lot of furniture. Like cabinets are boxes. Your dresser is a box with boxes inside it. A table is basically a box with like the legs, right? So there's that where you think about it as the Pythagorean theorem, right? You use that as a gauge to measure and make sure that all of your ends are square. It's called square in woodworking terms, but what that means is that your corners are 90 degrees. So, so this is frame, right? So you really, really want each of these corners to be 90 degrees, right? If it's not 90 degrees, it's going to be like a little skewed, and a frame you might not notice if it's just a little bit off, but with like a dresser or something, it's just gonna like scale up with the as you keep going.
Yeah.
As if your frame is not perfectly a box, your drawer is not going to work. It's going to stick. So you really, at every step, whenever you're building, you want to make sure that every corner that you make is perfectly at 90 degrees.
Right.
And the one way we do that is you measure the diagonals. So you measure this diagonal and you measure this diagonal. So they should be perfectly equal. And essentially, that's the Pythagorean theorem, right?
So I guess the diagonals are congruent because it's a rectangle. Even though in woodworking terms you call it a square, it's a rectangle.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can introduce angles to your projects, and kind of takes the projects, like elevates it a little bit, right? You add a little angle to the leg or whatever. One of the things that we use very often, and a lot of woodworkers use that without realizing it, is that whenever we cut a board on a saw, we are never cutting the actual angle. We're always cutting the complementary angle, because so if you have a board, right, and so the saw blade always goes through the board like this. So always, if you want, so like here, if you want this to be at 30 degrees, you are going to measure this angle. A lot of times, if you want to, like, say if this was a table or whatever, like a table leg, right, and I wanted to add a piece of wood like this in here, right, how would I calculate exactly how long this board needs to be? Or rather, how would I calculate what the angles need to be, right? I need to figure out what's the angle that I'm going to cut this at so that it fits perfectly. So that's where you kind of can use like sine and cos, because they are the relationship of the angle with the length of the sides.
Right. That's awesome. So a geometry, like a good project for trigonometry could be to be built something, because kids are using, angles and trig and all of that. That's awesome. So you found, you have your diagonal length, but in order to find your angles, you're pretty much solving the triangle. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're actually doing the inverse trigonometric, right? Arcs, you're doing that.
Right. Yeah.
With the other way as well, right? If you have the angle, if you already have the angle, and then you want to figure out this actual length. Well, algebra is pretty much used all the time, because now, like, if I'm building something and I know what dimensions I need, but I need to figure out how many boards I need to buy, right? Because the boards, they come in 8 feet lengths. So I need to kind of distribute all my cuts onto the boards. What is the best way to kind of make it more efficient so I don't lose material.
Mm. Yeah, wow. That's awesome. Have you had any time where, like you you've made a calculation error and which led to a design flaw and then you had to correct it, something like anything like that?
That happens like all the
All the
time.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Part of the process. That's just part of building anything or doing a project. It always happens.